That's what they're mad about. 41 nationally televised games, and they are furious over it. I can't understand.
The WNBA is currently caught up in a major fan feud. On one side, you've got A'ja Wilson and her group of supporters, who are reportedly talking about boycotting games featuring Caitlin Clark. On the other side, there are millions of new fans that Caitlin has brought into women's basketball with her incredible skill and personality. These fans are confused, wondering why anyone would be against the player who's helping keep the league in the spotlight.
But you want to boycott the one player, looking right at you, Angel Reese and A'ja Wilson, one player that has caused the revenue to go way up in the monetary values. That's what you want to do. You think you're helping these women?
The WNBA has never been more popular. Indiana Fever games are selling out like Beyoncé concerts, ESPN keeps adding more WNBA coverage, and social media is flooded with highlight clips and debates about Caitlin Clark. But instead of celebrating this growth and cashing in on the attention, some veteran players and their fans are acting like it's a threat. It seems like the real problem isn't mediocrity or fading into obscurity, it's success, especially when it comes to Caitlin Clark.
The original fans, activist fans, that's what they are, all right? Just keeping it real. They don't like the fact that you want to watch these games. They don't like the fact that you are 3 or 4 times the amount of them.
You catch the news lately? There's practically an all-out fan skirmish brewing over the fact that Caitlin Clark's games are airing nationally 41 times this season. That's more than anyone else in the league. And some people are so mad about it, you'd think Clark stole their lunch money. The internet is now flooded with dramatic calls for protest, like we're in some sort of overhyped teen dystopian novel. All because one rookie dared to get attention.
Right here, Caitlin Clark in the Fever will have more nationally televised game than any NBA player this year. Sorry, LeBron. Sorry, Luka. Sorry, every other player in the league. Let's be honest. I've seen the NBA ratings. She's beaten most of them.
Have you seen the news lately? There's a full-blown fan clash happening over the fact that Caitlin Clark's games are being aired nationally 41 times this season, more than any other player. Some people are so upset, you'd think Clark took their lunch money. The internet is now packed with dramatic calls for protests, almost like we are in a fictional teen drama, all because one rookie has grabbed the spotlight.
So they're all mad right now, furious, and my goodness, guys, they're talking boycott. Oh, what? Oh, there's strength in numbers. There's tens of you.
Believe it or not, there are actually WNBA fans, grown adults, planning to boycott Fever games in an effort to lower the ratings. Can you imagine being so upset about someone else getting attention that you try to hurt your own league's numbers? And no, this isn't just some random Reddit thread. Some of these boycott leaders are even connected to WNBA media, openly encouraging people to skip games or watch through shady streams, like that's going to teach ESPN a lesson or something.
And yes, I understand. This is a very, very small minority. It is a very small minority of people, but it is a loud, vocal minority. And this is not the general public. This is not the general.
Believe it or not, there are actually WNBA fans, grown adults, planning to boycott Fever games in an effort to lower the ratings. Can you imagine being so upset about someone else getting attention that you try to hurt your own league's numbers? And no, this isn't just some random Reddit thread. Some of these boycott leaders are even connected to WNBA media, openly encouraging people to skip games or watch through shady streams, like that's going to teach ESPN a lesson or something.
A'ja Wilson is her name. Quote, "It doesn't matter what we all do as black women, we're still going to be swept underneath the rug. That's why it boils my blood when people say it's not about race, because it is."
Let's talk about A'ja Wilson for a moment. If jealousy were a stat, she'd be leading the league. While Caitlin Clark is breaking viewership records and selling out arenas, A'ja's been busy posting more passive-aggressive tweets than actual stats. Instead of embracing the new attention, she's throwing shade like it's part of her game plan. It's almost surprising how someone so accomplished can come off so bitter. You'd think the WNBA handed Caitlin her own network and a parade float with the way A'ja's reacting. What's crazy is, she's not even losing anything, she just doesn't like sharing the spotlight. For years, A'ja's been the face of the league, with little competition. Now, along comes a younger, flashier, and frankly more marketable player, and suddenly it's all about how Caitlyn's getting too much attention. Well, newsflash, attention isn't handed out, it's earned. Caitlyn's been putting on a show every night, while Asia's been channeling that frustrated older sibling energy in the background.
We're not supposed to talk about it out loud, maybe. That's a massive part. Straight white girl's a big part of it too. I mean, it's out loud. It's out loud. It just came out of my mouth like that. Just easy peasy. So they're mad, and they are calling for boycotts.
You'd think a 3-time MVP would be more secure, but watching A'ja Wilson react to Caitlin Clark's rise is like watching a Netflix star realize their show got cancelled mid-season because something better came along. It's not Caitlyn's fault that fans are tuning in for her instead of salty Twitter posts. The cameras follow the storyline, and right now, Asia's playing the antagonist in a drama she didn't have to be part of. The truth is, a small group of loyal fans, those who've been around since the days when the arenas were empty and the halftime shows were t-shirt tosses, feel like their secret club just got exposed. They stuck with the league when it was niche, and now that it's going mainstream thanks to Caitlyn, they're acting like someone just stepped on their vintage merch. Clip 8. Let's be real, this so-called boycott movement isn't about fairness or justice, it's about ego. It's about a few longtime fans and players who'd rather see the league shrink than let Caitlin Clark become the face of its future. Some media voices have already called them out, pointing out that most real fans are too busy enjoying the games to complain about airtime.
The Slows are now planning to, quote, boycott Indiana Fever games to affect the viewership. They really think they matter in the big scheme of things.
What we're seeing here is classic gatekeeping. The longtime fans who feel they own the league's identity are panicking now that fresh talent is shaking things up. This happens in every fandom, from hip-hop fans complaining about TikTok rappers to comic book purists losing it over blockbuster movie adaptations. It's all the same insecure energy.
It's just mad. And what they have now trying to do is they are trying to boycott Indiana Fever games. I'm not joking when I say this. They are literally saying, boycott Indiana. We need to all boycott the Indiana Fever games so they don't get more national TV games. We don't get more national TV games next year.
Meanwhile, the logic behind the boycott doesn't even make sense. If you actually care about the players and the league's success, deliberately tanking viewership is one of the dumbest moves you could make. Caitlin Clark isn't the only one benefiting here. Her success is boosting the league's profile, which means more money for everyone. This petty protest could backfire so badly that it ends up hurting the very players the boycotters claim to support.
Cannot believe it. And again, this is a minority of people, but the problem is the idiotic minority somehow have a lot of them somehow have ins with WNBA players, WNBA teams and stuff. I cannot believe it.
Let's talk numbers for a second. Before Caitlin Clark came along, WNBA games were doing okay if they hit 200,000 viewers per game. Now, we're seeing over 1 million regularly. That's not just growth, it's a ratings explosion. And that jump? It's not just a vanity metric, it's real money in the league's pockets. More viewers mean better ad deals, which means bigger paychecks for everyone. But sure, let's boycott that.
Ad equivalent. I just can't believe it. But their reasoning for boycotting the Fever games, they're literally saying, we should illegally stream the games when the Fever play our team. And I'm like, one, you are not a big enough percentage of the population for it to have any effect.
Here's how the money actually works. Player salaries are tied directly to media rights deals. These are the huge contracts networks like ABC, ESPN, and CBS sign to broadcast the games. And those contracts? They're driven by viewership. The more people watch, the more these networks are willing to pay. It's basic business. Yet somehow, this seems to be lost on the boycott crowd.
All that does is harm the players. No matter who you are, what team you are a fan of, if you want the players to make more money.
And here's the kicker, the WNBA is in the middle of renegotiating its collective bargaining agreement. This is literally the worst time to be sulking and sabotaging ratings. Networks are seeing Caitlin Clark pull in huge audiences, and they're already mentally adjusting their checkbooks. If the league plays its cards right, those high viewership games could raise the financial ceiling for every single player. But if this boycott nonsense gains traction, that ceiling might come crashing down.
They're actively trying to ungrow the game. And it's madness. It's absolutely madness. They're threatening to boycott the Fever games. All All 257 of them threatening to boycott Fever games like it makes any difference. Like, these people are not fans of basketball. These people are actually not fans of the WNBA.
Let's break this down. Caitlin Clark steps onto the scene, and suddenly the WNBA is pulling in 5 to 10 times more viewers than usual. That's not just a small bump, that's a seismic shift. With that kind of attention, the networks are practically drooling. They're not just willing to renegotiate, they're ready to throw their wallets at the league. This is the kind of spotlight the WNBA has been chasing for decades. And now that it's finally here, some people want to boycott? Make it make sense.
They just don't like Caitlin Clark. Like, this is genuinely, it's nothing to do with basketball. And it's nothing to do with Caitlin Clark, the person. There's no rhyme or reason to it, because I don't think there is a harder person to dislike.
What makes this whole anti-Clark movement so tragically ridiculous is who's behind it. A lot of the same people who've been demanding for years that WNBA players deserve higher pay are now trying to sabotage the very thing that could make that happen. These fans wanted the league to be respected, visible, and profitable, and now that a rookie is making all of that happen with record-breaking numbers, they've decided success is too mainstream for their liking.
They just don't like Caitlin Clark. It's a personal thing, and they will literally. These people, again, they're not fans of basketball, they're not fans of the WNBA, they're not fans of any teams. They just don't like Caitlin Clark.
It's almost poetic how short-sighted these boycott supporters are. They're acting like viewership is some kind of zero-sum game, where one person getting attention somehow takes it away from everyone else. But that's not how any of this works. High ratings don't just mean more people watching Caitlin Clark, they mean more ticket sales, more jerseys flying off the shelves, more buzz around every team. It means sponsors who didn't even know the WNBA existed now want a piece of the action. Everyone wins, except, apparently, common sense.
I don't think they understand there's no viewership before Clark. So if they boycott, would it really move the needle?
And no, Caitlin Clark isn't out here hoarding all the cash like she's the villain in a heist movie. The money she's helping generate is shared league-wide. Salary caps go up, minimum salaries increase, and players who've spent years grinding for modest paychecks finally have a chance at real compensation. That's not favoritism, that's the tide rising. Yet, the haters would rather sink the whole boat just to keep Caitlin from steering it.
And it's a situation where they move the goalpost. They'll always move the goalpost. You're seeing, like, prominent figures in the WNBA media-ish space. And the reason I say media-ish space is the Twitter trolls somehow are interact with the damn actual media in a two-way conversations every day. It's mental.
But here's the real kicker. In what other sport do fans actively organize to ignore their most popular star? Can you imagine NFL fans boycotting Patrick Mahomes' games out of spite, or NBA fans sitting out Steph Curry's TV appearances because he's too marketable? It's absurd. This isn't just a weird moment, it's a glaring example of how differently women's sports are treated when someone actually starts winning the fame game.
If us sports fans wanted to watch this crap before Caitlin Clark got involved, we would have been watching it. I mean, I own 2 sports channels. I get paid for talking about sports for a living. I was not watching this league.
Let's not beat around the bush. There's a thick layer of jealousy suffocating certain parts of the WNBA fanbase and media. You've got legacy commentators and salty Twitter users acting like Caitlin Clark's success is a personal insult. Their thinking seems to be, we struggled for this league, and now you're just going to show up and shine? Yes, she is. That's what happens when you're that good.
Is it possible to boycott just one team's games? Like we all just illegally stream them if they're playing one of our teams? ? That's the plan. Okay, Deidre.
Psychologically, it makes sense. These are people who've spent years gatekeeping women's basketball. They built niche communities, learned every roster, followed preseason trades like they were stock tips, and now millions of new fans are flooding in, asking where they can buy Caitlin's merch. It's classic turf anxiety. Suddenly, the thing they knew everything about belongs to the masses, and it's being redefined by someone who wasn't part of the old crew. That's tough if your ego is fragile.
I'm talking about the old WNBA media. I'm not talking about the ones that are in 5 years' time they'll still be there. The old WNBA media that are shaking their fist, shaking their fist at the screen every single time they see somebody that was not there with them when no one was watching getting an opportunity in the media that they didn't get, even though they're sitting there in spaces with Twitter trolls talking nonsense about players.